All right, let's try this again. Just shot this whole video and then realized I didn't have my autofocus on. So take two. But anyway, I've got a fun one for you today. We're checking out 10 of my absolute favorite plugins that I use in every single mix I do. Obviously, and I talk about this in a bunch of my videos, you don't need any of these to make great mixes. So don't feel like you need to run out and buy all of them. But having the right tools can make mixing both easier and more fun. So these are just the ones that make mixing extra easy and fun for me. And if you do end up wanting to buy any of these plugins, I'll link to all of them in the description down below. And a couple of those are affiliate links, so buying through them really helps the channel. Or if you want to buy something but hate the channel and don't want to support it, well, that's cool too. Just Google them, they're easy to find. So with that out of the way, I figured I'd break this list down by category, and I might as well start it off with my favorite category, compressors. I have a lot of fun with compression, and honestly, it would be pretty easy to fill up this top 10 list with just compressors. Maybe that'll be a future video, but I'll try to limit myself to just a couple here. For me, compression is just as much about character, attitude, and color as it is about controlling dynamics. Like, it's very rare that I reach for a super clean surgical compressor. I pretty much always want to add some form of character. And one of my favorites for adding character is the Kive Audio Extressor. This thing is an absolute beast, and it's found a permanent home on my drum bus, as well as making frequent appearances on my kick, snare, and room mics as well. Distressors are known for being super versatile, and if I had to, I could probably make do with the Extressor being my only compressor during a mix. But what fun would that be? For compressor number 2, we've got VU Compressor from Purified Audio. I just got this one fairly recently, but it's already replaced a bunch of other compressors in my mix template. It's got 4 different compressors built in, 3 different revisions of the 1176, plus an LA3A, and they all sound great. Combine that with the built-in high and low shelf EQ for a little tone shaping, and this thing covers a lot of ground. One of my favorite features though is the THD knob. This controls how much saturation is added along with the compression. So you can go from squeaky clean to full-blown distortion. I found that I usually like to dial the THD back a little bit on vocals and guitars, but it can be fun to push it on drums and bass. But yeah, I've been loving the Revision F and 3A settings for vocals, and the Revision D for bass. Moving on to EQs, and no surprise here, but we've got FabFilter Pro Q3. This covers probably 90% of my EQ needs in a mix, and having the built-in dynamic EQ is insanely helpful. I won't go too deep into my love for Pro Q3 here, cause I already have a whole video doing that, so go watch that if you want to learn more. But this thing just rules. Every once in a while, however, I get a little bit caught up in my own head while EQing and get distracted by seeing the EQ curve or seeing the analyzer or whatever, and I just need something where I can just twist a knob or two to do some crazy tone shaping without thinking and without any distractions. When that's what I need, I usually reach for the SSL 4000E channel strip from Brainworks. It sounds great, it's super easy to use, and I don't feel like it's judging me when I need to boost 15 decibels of 1K on bass guitar. Just remember to turn the noise off on this one. I really wish plugin companies would stop adding hum by default. And an honorable mention here to the Kit BB N105. I spent something like 7 years or so working on a Neve 8058 console, so sometimes when I'm overthinking something, I'll toss this one on, and it really does remind me a lot of the EQs on that board. Now let's talk saturation. And actually, before we do, I'd love to see other people's Desert Island plugin list, so let me know yours in the comments. But anyway, my absolute number one favorite saturation plugin is FabFilter Saturn 2. It's funny, because when I first got Saturn, I really didn't use it that much. Anytime I'd open it up, I'd feel a little bit overwhelmed from all the options. But once I finally wrapped my head around it, or at least the basics of it, I've still really only scratched the surface of what it can do. It's become an absolute staple for me. I've made a couple videos showing some cool things you can do with it, so be sure to check those out if you want to see how to get started with Saturn. But if Saturn is still a little overwhelming for you, and you want something simpler, my honorable mention here goes to PSP Saturator. PSP is such an underrated company, and their saturator is absolutely top-notch. I really love the tube settings in it, and the softness knob is amazing for smoothing out any harshness in a track. Reverbs and delay. Let's start with delay. That's an easy one. Valhalla delay, all day, every day. It's by far one of the most versatile and most inspiring delay plugins out there. This is the delay I use probably 95% of the time. It just works for basically everything. For the other 5% of the time, that's when I reach for our honorable mention, Soundtoys Echo Boy. It's also amazing and is probably even more versatile than Valhalla delay, so you really can't go wrong with either. For reverb, I've got to go with Seventh Heaven Professional from Liquid Sonics. This one is on the pricier side, probably the most expensive plugin on this list, but it sounds so good. It's basically a Bricasti in plugin form, so you can't go wrong with that. I love the chambers and plates on vocals, the room settings on drums, and halls on piano, strings, horns, whatever. They're all just super lush and gorgeous sounding. They also have a light version for significantly cheaper. It has fewer reverbs in it, and maybe less controls as well. And we've got to give an honorable mention here to any and all of the Valhalla reverbs. They're all fantastic, and you can probably buy all of them for the same price as Seventh Heaven. So they're definitely worth checking out. When it comes to mastering limiters, the one I've been using on almost everything lately is Limiter from Mastering the Mix. It sounds really, really good, and it's super easy to use. It's only got a handful of controls, and it's got a Smart Assist thing that gives you suggested starting points for those controls. That's especially helpful if you're just tossing a limiter onto a rough mix at the end of a session, or a full master onto a mix to send to the band. The suggested settings are pretty darn solid and will get your track plenty loud without messing anything up. I will give a shout out to Newfangled Audio's Elevate as well. This is kind of the polar opposite of Mastering the Mix's limiter in that it's got like a billion controls and is highly tweakable, but it's super powerful. Every once in a while, limiter just won't be doing it for me on a particular mix, and when that's the case, I'll reach for Elevate. And finally, we've got a handful of miscellaneous plugins that don't really fit neatly into any of the previous categories, but are definitely worth mentioning. And the first of those is Soothe 2. Again, I won't go too deep here, as I already have a couple videos showing what Soothe can do. But basically, if you've got anything that's a little bit too harsh in your mix, Soothe will fix that for you. I especially love it on overheads and guitars, using it to just take a little bit of the edge off. For miscellaneous plugin number 2, we've got Reference from Mastering the Mix. This might legitimately be the most important mixing plugin for me. I've got a full video review of this one that you can check out if you're interested. But basically, it's a super easy way to compare and A/B your mix against other tracks, whether that be a reference mix or a rough mix. Occasionally opening it up and checking your mix against something else while mixing is a great way to kind of keep your eyes on the prize, to ground your ears and refocus on the sonic vision you're going for. I'm sure we've all been there where we spend hours mixing, thinking it sounds great, and then we listen to something else and realize we are a million miles away and our ears just got used to the sound of our lackluster mix. This plugin helps prevent that. And on the off chance that anyone was actually counting the number of plugins in this top 10 list, I'm pretty sure that was 10. So I guess these last couple will just be honorary mentions. First, we have McDSP's Futz box. It's basically the ultimate lo-fi box. Want the telephone effect? Why use EQ when Futzbox has a dozen different actual telephone sims to run your track through? It's a lot of fun and has a ton of cool, unique, vibey sounds in it. And then we have Slate Trigger. In a perfect world, we'd all be working with amazing tracks that don't need any drum samples. But that's usually not the case. And Trigger makes sample replacing insanely easy. By the way, if you have Trigger, there's a link to a free sample pack in the description down below, so be sure to grab that. So yeah, let me know what you thought of my list, and let me know your picks in the comments. And be sure to check out this playlist for more insanely cool plugins, including some deep dives into ones mentioned on this list. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.